Comment down below where you're watching from and don't forget to like and subscribe if you hate Karen. It all began with an innocuous flyer tucked beneath the doormat, adorned with cheerful pastels that clashed terribly with the muted tones of my suburban facade. The invitation was clear, almost demanding, inviting me to a neighborhood gathering set to take place in my own backyard. Signed with an overly formal flourish by Olivia, the community's self-appointed social coordinator, the flyer bore an air of inevitability that left me unsettled. I am not one to seek confrontation. My days were typically spent in quietude, immersed in books and the occasional company of my loyal, albeit oversized, canine companions. Yet, even I had my limits, and this intrusion upon my private sanctuary tested them sorely. Olivia's name carried with it a certain banality, much like the perfectly manicured lawns and conformity that defined our neighborhood's aesthetic. Her role as the orchestrator of community events seemed to eclipse any consideration for individual privacy or preferences. Standing on my porch, Olivia exuded an aura of self-assuredness that bordered on presumption. Her neatly coiffed hair and crisply pressed blazer bespoke an authority she wielded with an air of entitlement. "Good morning," she chimed, her voice a saccharine blend of friendliness and command. "I wanted to personally invite you to our upcoming neighborhood picnic. It promises to be delightful, with all our neighbors coming together." Her words hung in the morning air, punctuated by a disconcerting smile that hinted at underlying motives. I took a measured breath, steeling myself against the invasion of my cherished solitude. "Olivia," I began, striving for composure, "while I appreciate the gesture, I must decline. Hosting such an event in my backyard is simply not feasible." Her response was swift, dismissing my concerns with a wave of her hand. "Oh, nonsense," she countered, her tone laced with a patronizing charm. "Your yard is the perfect venue. It's spacious, centrally located, and frankly, we need your participation for the community's sake." The term community rang hollow in my ears, laden with implications of conformity and obligation. My carefully cultivated garden, with its whimsical art installations and tranquil corners, stood as a testament to personal expression amidst a sea of uniformity. Olivia's vision of community, it seemed, did not align with my own. As she prepared to depart, Olivia dropped a parting remark that echoed with finality. "I've already sent out the invitations," she declared, her smile unwavering. "We look forward to seeing you next Saturday." With a sigh, I closed the door behind her, resigned to a week of strategic planning. This unwelcome picnic, I realized, would require more than mere politeness to deter. The remainder of the week stretched before me like an unwelcome challenge, each day marked by meticulous preparation and mounting apprehension. Olivia's insistent invitation to host a neighborhood picnic in my own backyard gnawed at my peace, demanding a response that balanced diplomacy with determination. With Barnaby, Delilah, and Brutus by my side, I embarked on Operation Distraction. These beloved companions, each with their own endearing quirks and formidable presence, would play a pivotal role in dissuading Olivia and her band of picnickers from turning my sanctuary into a communal gathering ground. Barnaby, my gentle giant of a Rottweiler with a heart of gold, had a penchant for slobbery kisses and a curious affinity for any food within reach. Delilah, equally massive in stature but possessed of a soulful empathy, seemed to sense my unease, often leaning against my legs in a silent show of solidarity. And then there was Brutus, the self-appointed guardian despite his comical fear of squirrels, whose booming bark could startle even the most steadfast visitor. Together, we practiced scenarios that emphasized their natural inclinations without veering into aggression. Fetch sessions with a muddy tennis ball highlighted Barnaby's enthusiasm for play, while stay commands were reinforced with tantalizing treats just out of reach. Delilah's comforting presence became a reassuring anchor, especially when faced with Olivia's persistent attempts to coax compliance. And Brutus, in his moments of squirrel-induced panic, provided an unexpected but effective deterrent to any unwelcome intrusion. As the days passed, I found myself growing increasingly adept at navigating the delicate balance between preparedness and passive resistance. A strategically placed garden hose, disguised as a playful water feature, became an instrument of subtle intimidation. Its ability to unleash an unexpected spray at the slightest provocation would prove invaluable in maintaining the sanctity of my domain. Meanwhile, Olivia buzzed about the neighborhood like a determined bee, finalizing arrangements with an efficiency that bordered on obsessive. Her meticulous planning, reflected in the meticulous folding of picnic blankets and the careful placement of floral arrangements, only fueled my determination to protect what was mine. Saturday dawned bright and clear, a perfect canvas for Olivia's meticulously curated picnic and a daunting challenge for my carefully laid plans. I fortified myself with coffee and the quiet company of my dogs, their supportive presence a constant source of reassurance amidst the growing tension. By midday, the first wave of guests began to arrive, their vehicles filling the streets with a symphony of suburban normalcy. Minivans and SUVs disgorged folding chairs and laden picnic baskets, their owners chatting animatedly about the anticipated festivities. Olivia, resplendent in a floral dress that matched her determined smile, orchestrated the unfolding scene with the precision of a seasoned conductor. The moment had come to put our strategy into action. With a deep breath and a signal understood only by my loyal companions, I swung open the back door and released them into the fray. "Okay, kids," I murmured, my voice tinged with both apprehension and resolve, "let's go make some friends." Barnaby bounded forward with his characteristic enthusiasm, his massive head zeroing in on the nearest platter of potato salad with unwavering determination. Delilah, sensing the unease of a particularly officious matron in a sun hat, leaned against her legs in a gesture of affectionate solidarity. And Brutus, ever vigilant despite his fear of imaginary adversaries, spotted a squirrel perched on a nearby tree and launched into a cacophony of barks that startled a hapless guest still clutching a plate of deviled eggs. The scene that unfolded was a tableau of canine-induced chaos, a delightful disruption to Olivia's carefully choreographed plans. Amidst the pandemonium, the sprinklers, sensing the escalating tension, chose that precise moment to activate, showering unsuspecting guests with an unexpected deluge of water. Screams filled the air, children ran for cover, and picnic baskets were abandoned in hasty retreat. Olivia's carefully cultivated smile faltered, replaced by a look of sheer incredulity as her meticulously planned event dissolved into canine-inspired anarchy. "Control your dogs," she shrieked, her voice cracking with frustration. "I'm trying," I retorted, a faint expression of concern masking a burgeoning sense of satisfaction. The unfolding chaos was a testament to the unwavering loyalty of my furry companions and a resounding rebuttal to Olivia's misguided imposition. As the guests scattered in disarray, folding chairs were abandoned, and Tupperware lids popped open to spill their contents onto the grass, Olivia stood amidst the wreckage, her once pristine dress now clinging to her like a wet dish rag. "This is your fault," she accused, her voice trembling with indignation. "My fault?" I replied innocently, though my eyes sparkled with amusement. "I only wanted to share my yard with the community." With that, the picnic disbanded, leaving behind a scene of disarray and a disheveled Olivia, her dreams of a neighborhood utopia shattered by a trio of mischievous dogs and an unforeseen drenching from the sprinklers. Olivia did not nurse her wounded ego for long. By Monday morning, 48 hours after the soggy ruin of her perfect picnic, a cream-colored envelope lay in my mailbox. The return address read Willow Meadow Homeowners Association, a name as bland as the cul-de-sac itself. Inside was a formal notice of violation, triple-spaced for maximum intimidation. My alleged crimes? Failure to cooperate with a scheduled community event, excessive canine activity, and, most curiously, unsanctioned water dispersion. I laughed harder than I should have, but the letter carried a threat of fines that could snowball if ignored. Olivia was playing bureaucratic chess, I needed a countermove. That evening, while Barnaby dozed at my feet and Delilah snored against my calf, I read the HOA bylaws cover to cover, highlighter in hand. Buried in Article 6, Section 12b, I found a delicious loophole. Any HOA-sponsored gathering on private property required the written consent of the owner. No signature, no legitimacy. Olivia had gambled that peer pressure would replace paperwork. Poor gamble. The following day I photocopied that clause onto neon pink paper and distributed it to every porch on the block. Friendly reminder, the heading read, "Know your rights before you RSVP." I may not crave social interaction, but I understand the power of information. By sunset, the neighborhood group chat was ablaze with debate. Some residents admired Olivia's initiative, others now felt duped. The most gratifying message pinged in at 10 p.m. Did anyone here actually see a consent form? Silence followed. Olivia, sensing the tide shifting, doubled down. On Wednesday, she called an emergency HOA board meeting to address escalating noncompliance. I arrived with copies of my sprinkler's water usage permit, fully legal, and 3 very polite, freshly bathed dogs wearing service animal vests I'd purchased online. It was theatrical and legal because the vests read emotional support, ask before petting. The meeting unfolded in the clubhouse's beige conference room under fluorescent lights that buzzed like nervous wasps. Olivia opened proceedings with a PowerPoint titled Restoring Community Standards. The first slide featured a photo of my drenched lawn, zoomed in on Brutus Midbark. She launched into a speech about civility and collective aesthetics, her voice trembling between outrage and self-pity. When it was my turn, I quoted Section 12B, entered my unsigned consent line into the record, and presented the neighborhood chat screenshots as Exhibit A. Then I invited the board to note that Barnaby, Delilah, and Brutus were calm, leashed, and indisputably adorable. Brutus even managed a yawn that sounded like an affectionate sigh. Laughter rippled across the room. Olivia's cheeks colored the shade of underripe plums. The vote to dismiss my violation passed 4-1. Olivia cast the lone nay, her manicured finger stabbing the air as if she could puncture the motion itself. Meeting adjourned. As neighbors filed out, whispers hummed, "Maybe Olivia's taking this too far." I caught the eye of Mr. Talbot, a retired Marine who tended roses like they were recruits. He gave me a subtle thumbs up. Alliances were shifting, and Olivia knew it. That night she attempted a final salvo, a passive-aggressive email blast accusing me of weaponizing loopholes and endangering property values with canine menace. I didn't need to reply. Barnaby, Delilah, and Brutus had their own form of digital diplomacy. A neighbor posted a slow-motion video of the trio chasing bubbles in my yard, set to uplifting piano music. Within hours the clip racked up more likes than Olivia's last 6 HOA newsletters combined. Thursday morning I stepped onto my porch with coffee in hand. Olivia's SUV rolled past, its windows up, her gaze fixed ahead. For the first time, she did not slow to glare. I exhaled, feeling the air lighten. The dogs bounded out after a squirrel, tails high. Victory, I realized, isn't always loud, sometimes it is the quiet that follows an opponent's silence. Spring in Willow Meadow traditionally culminates in a street-long fete, pastel bunting, bake sale tables, and an amateur jazz trio bravely massacring Duke Ellington beneath the mailbox pavilion. This year Olivia announced, with brittle cheer, that the fete would include a presentation on responsible pet stewardship. No one doubted who the unspoken exhibit would be. Rumor placed the presentation at high noon on Saturday. I had 48 hours to decide, skip the fete and seed the narrative, or attend and redirect it. Over chamomile tea I weighed the options while my canine core sprawled like furry throw rugs across the living room floor. Inspiration arrived via television, a vintage documentary about therapy dogs visiting children's hospitals. There it was, fight spectacle with service. Friday morning I phoned Paws and Hearts, a regional charity that pairs volunteers and certified therapy dogs with nursing home residents. Their coordinator, Ms. Antonelli, sounded delighted. They had a booth at the fete but no demonstration scheduled. Would Barnaby, Delilah, and Brutus like to help? They'd be honored, I replied, glancing at Brutus wrestling a chew toy shaped like a squirrel. Fate, apparently, enjoys irony. I spent the evening outfitting the trio with bright scarves embroidered Paws and Hearts volunteer. Brutus practiced sitting calmly while a neighbor's cat strutted along the fence. Delilah mastered the slow, gentle lean beloved by wheelchair users. Barnaby perfected the art of offering a paw without knocking over small children. By dawn, they were professional ambassadors of goodwill. Saturday bloomed warm and windswept. Olivia bustled about the cul-de-sac, clipboard clutched like a royal scepter. At 11:45 I arrived in matching polo shirt and khakis, dress code respectably bland. The dogs trotted beside me, tails waving like banners. Ms. Antonelli greeted us with grateful enthusiasm. Within minutes, a semicircle of festival-goers formed to watch Barnaby gently place his head in an elderly man's lap, Delilah nudge a shy toddler toward giggles, and Brutus lie sphinx-like while a teenager in a cast scratched his ears. Phone cameras flashed, hearts melted. The jazz trio even abandoned take the train mid-bar to capture footage. Precisely at noon Olivia tapped the microphone. Her PowerPoint materialized on a portable screen, the risks of unmanaged pets. Slide 1 showed last week's waterlogged picnic. But murmurs rippled, the crowd's attention lingered on my dogs, not the slideshow. Olivia's frown twitched. She soldiered on, reciting statistics about dog bites and lawn damage. Mid-lecture, Barnaby executed a perfect shake with Ms. Antonelli, earning applause. Olivia's remote froze, the slide would not advance. Technology, like dogs, can sense tension. She smacked the remote, batteries skittered across the pavement. I seized the opening. Microphone in hand, I thanked Olivia for spotlighting pet responsibility and introduced Paws and Hearts. I explained how therapy dogs lower blood pressure, ease loneliness, and, glancing at Olivia, build genuine community. The irony was not lost on the audience, which erupted in support of claps. Olivia attempted a rebuttal, but Mr. Talbot stepped up. These pups just made my arthritic knees forget they hurt. That's community, ma'am. Laughter, then a hush of assent. Olivia's shoulders sagged, she uttered a tight-lipped thank you, and ceded the microphone. The fate resumed under a gentler rhythm. Children lined up to hug Barnaby, teens posed for selfies with Brutus, Delilah curled beside a grandmother recounting stories of a long-gone farm collie. Donations to Paws and Hearts overflowed the jar. As twilight painted the sky, Olivia approached. Her voice was softer, her gaze less sharp. Your dogs are remarkable, she admitted. She extended a tentative handshake. I took it. Perhaps Willow Meadow could partner with the charity next year, she offered. The grinding gears of humility made audible progress. We parted without fireworks, but the air felt different, lighter, collaborative. Barnaby trotted at my side, prize ribbon dangling from his collar, best good boy. I think we all won something that day. Change in suburbia usually creeps, but after the fate it sprinted. The HOA newsletter, formerly Olivia's personal manifesto, featured a front-page photo of Delilah pressed gently against a wheelchair, captioned Paws and Hearts visits Willow Meadow. Residents who had never spoken waved as I walked the dogs, a few even dropped homemade treats, for canines and humans alike, at my door. The real surprise arrived in a padded envelope, a revised draft of the pet policy Olivia once wielded like a cudgel. She asked for my feedback before presenting it to the board. I placed the document on the kitchen counter, stared at it as though it might sprout fangs, then invited the dogs to keep me company while I read. Gone were punitive clauses about leash lengths measured to the inch. In their place stood guidelines for socialization classes, a schedule for volunteer therapy visits, and, most shockingly, a section titled Annual Bark in the Park Day. Olivia proposed dedicating the Central Green to a dog-friendly festival benefiting local shelters. The woman who threatened fines for excessive canine activity now envisioned agility courses and adoption tents. Skepticism fluttered in my chest, but curiosity won. I annotated suggestions: free poop bag stations, shaded rest areas for seniors, and a silent auction table featuring homemade crafts, Olivia's specialty. 2 days later she rang my bell, blossoming hydrangea in hand. For your input, she said. Barnaby sniffed, approved, and escorted her to the porch swing. Conversation unfolded awkwardly at first, punctuated by Brutus's attempts to burrow under Olivia's feet, but warmth gradually seeped in. She admitted that the HOA presidency, inherited after her husband's relocation overseas, felt like wearing shoes 2 sizes too small. Control had been her survival mechanism. I thought if everything looked perfect, nothing could go wrong. She gestured toward the yard where Delilah lounged, bliss personified. But sometimes messy is healthier. We worked side by side refining the event proposal. Word spread, volunteers surfaced. Mr. Talbot offered woodworking skills for agility hurdles. Teenagers designed posters featuring Brutus in comic book style. Even the jazz trio pledged an upbeat set, promising no Ellington massacres. On launch day the park buzzed with anticipation. Colorful banners fluttered, food trucks exhaled aromas of grilled corn and pup-friendly ice cream. Olivia, no longer an authoritarian blazer but a pastel t-shirt reading Dog Days, Good Days, greeted attendees with genuine enthusiasm. Barnaby inaugurated the agility run, lumbering through tunnels with comic determination. Applause erupted. Delilah presided over the cuddle corner, leaning into every embrace, a donation jar beside her overflowed. Brutus, fearless today, strutted past the squirrel-rich oak trees as MC of the costume parade, sporting a superhero cape. Mid-afternoon, the shelter director announced adoption of 8 dogs, and counting. Tears shimmered in Olivia's eyes. She murmured, this is community. I placed a hand on her shoulder. Told you messy can be beautiful. As the sun dipped, children chalk-scribbled paw prints along the pathway spelling thank you. Olivia and I lingered, collecting stray litter. She produced a chew toy shaped like, of all things, a miniature HOA badge. For Brutus, she said, grinning. We laughed, loud, unguarded laughter that echoed against the gazebo. Later, sipping lemonade on my porch, I watched Barnaby snooze, Delilah chase fireflies, Brutus decimate his new badge. Peace settled, not the brittle calm of enforced rules, but a living, breathing balance between order and joyful chaos. I realized the battle for my backyard had never truly been about property lines, it was about boundaries of understanding. Olivia had trespassed, yes, but I had built fences of assumption, too. Removing both had created space for something larger, a neighborhood that could flex, forgive, and even frolic now and then. The hydrangea she'd gifted sat in a pot by the steps. Tomorrow I would plant it near the hose spigot, the same hose once primed for passive-aggressive blasts. Funny how tools of defense can become symbols of growth when minds soften. Inside, I drafted a brief note for the next newsletter. Thank you, Willow Meadow, for proving community is a verb, not a noun. I signed it simply, with paw prints ink stamped beneath my name.